Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Friday, y'all. Hope you're doing well. It's February 6th, 2026, and we're just going to do a quick little message and get up on out the way for the weekend, eh? I hope that you have had an awesome week, powerful week, a warm week, and hope you do something fun this weekend. All right, so let's see what we got here. No, I don't have anything extra to say. Let's just get right to it. Oh, yeah, I do. Conceited is the channeled message, the channeled song. Right before, well, as I was preparing, shuffling the cards out, I felt the nudge to listen to that, which is strange. The word itself, the energy itself, and the song I love. Of course, you know it's a would you call it a throwback? I guess it's kind of a throwback, but also a classic as well, a hip hop classic. Remy Ma, of course, and Fat Joe, or Fat Joe featuring Remy Ma, whichever one. And I love the song, but it's just not anything that's always at the top of my mind. Like, oh, I want to hear this right now. So yeah, I felt like it's significant enough to share that it's something about, really harnessing, maybe even embracing your supreme self-esteem. That's the highest vibration I can render it in, because we know conceited kind of has a negative connotation. But if you really listen to the words of the song, for the most part, it's not really, I mean, you could pull different lines for how you will, but for the most part, it's just really about bigging up yourself. You know what I mean? Or really recognizing like how amazing you are, and not not being a negotiable aspect of your identity. Like, this is why I'm conceited for a reason. Like, if usually when people, conceited is a word that is more an external experience, an outside in experience, where people either label you as such or perceive you to be such. Usually you don't say that about yourself. So maybe there's just an acceptance of the magnificence that you exude, and how sometimes that may be off-putting from the outside looking in. Sometimes it may be uncomfortable, it may even be provocative, but it's still a standard of excellent self-expression that you're not willing to compromise or to condemn for yourself, regardless of how it may be perceived outside of yourself, if that makes sense. So somebody might be looking upon you thinking your head's too big, or you think too highly of yourself, or they might not even from the outside looking in, might not understand what you think you have to think so highly about. And I'm just here to say that's neither here nor there, because if you can identify all the ways that you love you, and that you are unique and set apart from the rest, that's all that really matters. And if they want to call that conceited, they want to call that ego, if they want to call that big-headed, so be it. The key is not to allow the lowest frequency of that to permeate your being and your spirit in a way that is depreciating of your highest value, other than enhancing of it, if that makes sense. All right, so do you be beautiful, be bold, be creative, celebrate yourself, your accomplishments, celebrate your presence in every room you walk into, or don't, and let that just be, let that be the energy that precedes you, whether it's on the top of others' minds and however they interpret it, or if it's just, what you lead with before you even present yourself to the outside world. Know that there's gotta be a reason for you to feel good about yourself, you know, somewhere in there, if not many. All right. So celebrate them all. And for those that may not feel that way, this is your sign to do some self-reflection and consideration. Maybe even make yourself a list to remind yourself of how great you are. All right, let's see. 10 of Cups. Yeah, like completely fulfilled. Like, what is there left to be desired? Happiness, wholeness, blissfulness, togetherness, maybe even within self, like a harmony and peace with who you're created to be, who you're designed to be. Could be also soul family, so surrounding yourself with people that celebrate you. Not to say that you can't take constructive criticism or advice or even entertain perspectives, but generally speaking, you should be surrounded by people that are looking to extract the very best out of you and really propel you to excellence, or support your journey into that, in that regard, before anything else. You know, even if that is constructive criticism, it would be executed in a way to really improve, to support your evolution and your evolving into some better being than you already are. Know that your circle definitely has a direct effect on how you feel about yourself. For sure, it's a direct reflection. So if you surround yourself with a whole, look at this, 6 of Wands. If you surround yourself with a whole bunch of miserable people or insecure folks, haters, depressive people, what do you call it, pessimistic people that don't find any joy in life, don't find any joy in themselves, then that energy will ultimately permeate you in some way, shape, or form, no matter how hard of a shell you think you might have, or even the best boundaries that you could erect wouldn't be able to keep that energy from being impressionable or impactful in some way, shape, or form. That could ultimately have an effect on your success levels, your advancements. But this is soul family, or again, this actually is that celebration and like public recognition, or just direct recognition, maybe even praise and accolades for maybe just you being you doing you. You know, the things that you set out to do finally being celebrated, acknowledged, maybe understood, appreciated, perhaps even supported, you know, in advance to some next level. And this could actually be a direct derivative of who you have surrounded yourself by. Oh, look at this. 9 of Pentacles come through. Energy. Yes, this is the materialization of that success. We say recognition and rewards, but this is actually the reward of hard work, dedication, some type of spiritual impression that has been made at the 10, like where you filled yourself up to capacity, whether it be by, again, through your own means and resources, or through what you source outside of yourself, what you connect yourself with. It all matters. And now there's this like ushering into an era of something really, you know, like really kind of a standalone moment, I see. Because this, thank the folks that, you know, or thank the circumstances that have really ushered you to this point of life, especially if you're, and this is actually good, because 9 of Pentacles is definitely a self-esteem card for me, where you stand on your own too. You don't really need any validation. You don't necessarily need anybody to understand or or invest particularly in your interest or what you're doing per se. Like there's an establishment here on account of someone just being devoted to their way of being, their way of living, their perspective of life, which with the Ten of Cups is speaking to me is like this um, devotion to optimism and foresight of faith and the best possible outcome, to the point where it ultimately manifests itself through you, by you perhaps, but even the by you as it's connected to others is still on account of what you've decided to associate with, collaborate with, co-create with, or align with, inside out and outside in. So again, conceited for a reason, because you're here not just by chance. There's been some specific, maybe even calculated choices and actions that have amounted to this moment of independence and abundance and prosperity. Maybe somebody's business taking off. Could be social media taking off, recognition for what you've been doing, being set apart for your perspective in life, on life, being an optimistic one in a realistic way, like not saying that, there's no acknowledgement of the multi-dimensional aspects of life that aren't always peachy keen, but it's saying something about, doing the best with what you have under any circumstances, utilizing all of the resources you can, not in an opportunistic way that is selfish or apathetic, but in a way that is purposeful and intentional. Like that's what I'm seeing here, like very intentional about what you do, how you hold yourself, how you choose, how you respond, how you react, how proactive you are, like very tactical moves or maybe instinctual moves that have put someone in a pretty good position here to like reap the fruits of their labor. Damn. The fruits of their labor, and to benefit supremely from their vested energy. Yeah, it could be, like I said, social media taking off in a certain way that I would say is unexpected, but it could seem by chance when you think about the Six of Wands, where it's like one person raised above the fray. But is anything really by chance, by accident, or even by luck? Usually not. Usually not, as they say. What do they say? Luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So that's where this, sense of intentionality comes into play, because you might get called out, or people, an influx of attention or notoriety on account of something that you just been doing, just because you love to do it, because it makes you happy, because you believe in it, because you believe in yourself, like you've been believing in yourself and your capabilities and your visions and aspirations far before they made any sense to anybody else. And here is a moment I'm sensing where it finally pays off. The Moon card. The Moon, something mystical here. Let's see what else is on the other side of that Moon. Or like this could be the aspect of, like I was saying, like kind of out of nowhere or suddenly, or something you may not see coming if it hasn't manifested just yet. Like there may have been, for some, there may have been an intention to yield a certain return for their investments. Like you believed in you, so you knew at some point somebody would get it, you know, or even if they don't, it was still satisfying enough to devote yourself to, whatever that is. In this case with the wands, I feel like it's something productive or creative, you know, something that is a derivative of your personal passion, you know, what drives you. And like I said, it could be mystical or quite mysterious, or could have been, as to how results might be yielded, or where they would come from, or when, or at what magnitude. But maybe that wasn't the focus, and so therefore it didn't need to be it didn't need to be known, you know, it didn't need to be absolute, you know, guaranteed, I should say. But let's see what else with this moon, because you never know with the moon. could have been something hidden here, or is something hidden here. Maybe somebody still is a hidden secret. But then we got the Four of Wands, pardon me, which could be some type of secret establishment. Four of Wands, well, or accomplishment and achievement. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit touch and go there at some point in time. Let me see. Let me get another one after. What's that? The Moon and the Four of Wands. A secret win. Or there's something that was being established. It was like an underdog win, or something, you know, that wasn't on the radar. An upset win with the Four of Wands here. Like something was being established behind the scenes, or yeah, like I'm saying, it's like you could have had a channel or a platform, or been plugging away at something for years, you know, or months, or whatever, some extended period of time. And it could have been a best kept secret, you know, like nobody may have known what you were doing, where you were, how you were getting along, how you were establishing your life, what you were working on, if I didn't say that already, what you were creating, what you were projecting or manifesting. And then all of a sudden, here you go popping out looking like new money, or, you know, looking like something. It's like, damn, what was they up to all that time, or where they come from, or how they end up getting into that, or didn't even know they were doing all that. How they end, like, you could be doing in your own personal devotion could be now almost like a public display, or, you know, public knowledge, and folks may not have even known that was underway, you know. So it's a bit almost of a surprise to the public, or to those that haven't been privy to your private life or private endeavors. So maybe there's a bit of preparation that gets to happen on that account, for sure, because there's a certain comfort zone that can be maintained when you're not so exposed, and you're just doing what you love for the passion of it and nothing more. It's not, there's no need to react and respond or readjust for criticism's sake or observation's sake, because it's just purely what you're doing for you, or whatever it is that you believe in. To go from that to now everybody, you know, or not everybody, but eyes are watching. They're our opinions thrown around, and maybe criticisms, maybe praise. You know, everybody in the crowd ain't hating, but everybody ain't loving either. So it's like kind of managing, balancing even the Four of Wands, all of that energy collectively, and still maintaining that frequency of passion, optimism, devotion, dedication, maintaining your why, you know, the reason for your original ambition, and even evolving, you know, allowing that reason to evolve, or that inspiration to evolve as you evolve as an inspiration. Like, it seems, you know, it's like there's an expansion here for sure. That's it seems like one to look forward to, you know, one that has a great deal of promise with the Four of Wands, you know. But there, of course, with the moon aspect, maybe there are some things about it that can't be foreseen. Therefore, you couldn't really prepare for all the effects. And that could be good, bad, or indifferent. Just different, you know, just different from what my nose is itching like crazy. Different from what you've known, you know. Let's see, let's get another one. Shoot, it looks like we're gonna get a quick message. Seven of Cups, yeah, unknown. You don't know. You don't know what's happening on the other side of that success. It can't be predicted. Even how you might respond to it. You know, being in a different, I just heard tax bracket, being in a different exposure, being in a heightened exposure, having even more options at your disposal on account of your success. And you know, we know with the Seven of Cups, you really got to be mindful of the glitter gold effect, or the gold glitter, I should say, effect, and not be, again, not losing sight of the mission, the purpose, why this all began, or what you've been designed to do, so that you don't, you know, get distracted and derail the great momentum and track that you have established for yourself, on account of something that is not nearly as precious or valuable. Like, even emotionally, finding yourself being pulled in directions that are not productive, that are not prosperous to the mission, to your goal, that can again go with entertaining others' emotions or attitudes or opinions about you, perspectives about you, of which most don't even matter if we're really honest, you know what I mean? Because the same reason that you started a thing should be the motivation to, at least the foundational motivation to keep going. So anything else new, any nuance that presents itself beyond that, I feel is to be handled with a measuring stick, maybe even a yardstick of how important and how necessary it is to even consider, let alone to absorb. You know, there's something, oh, I got that, something here about observation versus absorption, you know, especially for those that are in the social media capacity and are exposed. You know, you got to do a hell of a lot of that with comments and opinions, and even keeping track of, you know, your stats and your what do you call it, your not your stats, what is it, I forget the term, you know, when you're watching what you're watching, like how your views and your engagements and your subscribers and so on and so forth. Like, if that wasn't the motivation to start, then that can't be the motivation to continue. Because for sure, in any social space, people love you, they're not so crazy about you, they understand you, they don't. They checking for you, they're not. They are vibing with you, or maybe they're against you. It could be so many different things that fluctuate with human emotions. So if you allow that to dictate your mood, especially about yourself, let's bring it back to the original channel song where I started, especially allowing that to affect your self-esteem, of which you have done a great deal of work to ground solidly, not the fluff, but really ground it solidly on who you are and why that should be celebrated and appreciated by you, if no one else. If that's enough to start, then let that be enough to see you through. Yeah, that's what I'm getting with that Seven of Cups. Worrying about other people's feelings, how other people are perceiving you, receiving you, or not, There's only but so much of that. Like I said, like when you're in a certain business or position, there may be some consideration of those aspects, but it can't be everything. Because if you're trying to people please, or please the algorithm, or please the platform, or please, your haters, your opposition or whatever. Shoot, even the people that support you and love you, i.e. 10 of Cups, you can't please all them either. So it has to come back to you and really a firm foundation on why you do what you do, and why, and even continuously reminding yourself of how well you do what you do, not in comparison to anyone else, but just for your sake and your satisfaction. I feel like that's important to stress, because we can get lost in the sauce otherwise, just humanly speaking, You can. Okay, what's that? Oop, look at that. Oh, man, see? Yep, there's that energy to just completely throw you off track, binding you to some psychological, what is that? Like a psychological, it could even, I heard psychosis, so it could even be, like I'm saying, just like really losing track of yourself and losing track of your purpose and your own passion, your purest passion, and binding yourself to something or some agenda or someone that doesn't have your best interest at heart, or doesn't really advance your purest ambitions and intentions in a way that is productive overall, for the greatest good of you, for the greatest good of whomever or whatever cause you serve, or I should say whatever collective or cause you serve. Yeah, this is just a complete distraction here, total opposite of the 10 of Cups. So it's getting so lost in the sauce that you're almost a slave to your you become a slave to your distractions, or to the distractions. Or God forbid, you do become so, let me say, what else is this devil? It's like, or you put yourself in bad agreements, even with yourself. You entangle yourself to an agenda that is so far from anything pure that you don't even recognize who you are anymore, or you don't even recognize why you do what you do, like the purpose behind anything. It's just either going through the motions for the carnal or exclusively primal satisfaction of it all, maybe even overstimulated by it all, as opposed to, again, back to the purpose of being of service, to the divine, to self, and again to your beliefs, your highest intentions. Something about this devil is not given like, I mean, it could, almost, it could even be a drunkenness with, becoming drunken with that notoriety and success, maybe even power in some cases that's been assumed or acquired on account of your success, could absolutely be that as well, like almost a delusion or some grandeur, some grandiose inflation of your identity that serves no purpose except to satisfy, that primal nature of yourself, to feel overly important, or even worse, above others. That's the darker aspect, the lower frequency of that conceited that I was warning of earlier, or speaking of on the other end of the spectrum. But it's too much goodness here. I feel like that energy is only an alert and a warning, because as I said, as human beings, we can all fall into that pitfall, whether it be self-destructive or more, destructive beyond ourselves. We can fall into that stronghold, or fall into that pitfall. But I think with the proper checks and balances, in place, again, keeping the right type of people around you, being constantly constantly reverting and reminding yourself of maybe your roots, or why you're doing what you're doing, your vision, your purpose, what's important, what's not, what truly does have an effect on your productivity and prosperity, and what does not, i.e. those opinions and that input and sideline commentary, even the things that we think contribute to our continued success, like support and patronage and so on and so forth. It's still really all fluff in the grand scheme of things, if it's not adding value to advancing and evolving your mission. If there's a regression in any way, shape, or form, as it kind of is here from the 10 to the 7, then, those, particularly in your emotional state, in your psychological state, if you're starting to see a decline in that regard, I feel like that's the signal to kind of, put yourself on alert to what might be inorganic, or what may have spoiled or expired itself, as far as your original mission is concerned, or your authentic mission. Yeah, I'm gonna leave this here. I'm not gonna go any further. I like that it's short. I feel like this is straight to the point, and I feel like the other thing about this devil energy is to just be alert. Like I said, that there are always going to be forces on the sideline that is, I guess, until there aren't anymore, which, is unknown, like the moon, or when that will ever be. But there will always be forces on the sideline that may have something to say, or may occupy a presence, to just kind of wait for a moment, an opportunity to insert themselves, or insert itself where it can, in those cracks of vulnerability, say perhaps in your self-esteem, which is probably why, bringing back to the very beginning, it's important to really bolster that now while it's not so delicate, to do so, where you might not have much to worry about in terms of publicity or public recognition or scrutiny or praise, either one. It's now is the time. I'm feeling like the main part of this message is to really establish your why, and well, your who and your why right now, if you haven't already, and build in a fail safe, whether it be by people, practice, or however, that will continuously remind you of that or bring you back to that, keep you real, for the most part, not bring you down, but keep you real, so that this energy never has a chance to thrive, never has a chance to penetrate and to infiltrate the spaces that have already been fortified in faith. Yeah. So this is just a small little corner of existence here that is not to be disregarded, for sure, but it certainly doesn't have to be a distraction or be allowed to take up more space than it's worth. It's only worth acknowledging for the purposes of awareness, not for acceptance into your auric field. Yeah. But just see, though, I can't help but stress to see how quickly, the turnaround can happen where you lose sight of self or something or the vision or whatever. And that gives like an easy crack in the door for an enemy force to just slip right on in. So, yeah, I'm saying that to say, for the awareness aspect, not for the alarm. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna leave that there. 3 of Wands, that's something coming in for sure and for certain. So this might be something, again, that it has not fully manifested yet, that has not shown itself, or even if it would have been prepared for or anticipated, the magnitude of the thing could not be. Like you could never really prepare yourself for how the divine wants to exalt you when it's your time. Especially when the pregame, a lot of the pregaming and precursor of success is really like you don't really know a lot of times how what you're doing is building a case for your future success, solidifying it, here we go, establishing it in a way that is virtually unshakable, or how your invested energy has appreciated with interest, particularly divine's interest in your devotion in the first place. For some that just, see a vision, see a void and feel a passion and a drive, and purposefully look to add value to whatever it is that they're doing, or whatever they feel drawn to, is usually in such a way that, like I said, you're not necessarily doing it for notoriety or for anybody to like it or care or applause or interest or anything of the sort. Is your own pure passion. So we have no real measure as human beings having a spiritual experience how valuable that is to the divine until the rewards begin, or the response begins to materialize. And then still feels overwhelming, or still feels like, well, really, all this for what? What did I do? What did I do to deserve this? So the conceited aspect, again, is for the purposes of establishing how important you are to yourself and to the divine at this time before the world gets to have their say, or others, whom whatever the world looks like, gets to have its say and its input, its opinion on that notoriety, whether they feel you deserve it, it's well deserved, or you're unworthy, whether you live up to the hype, that precedes you, or you don't. There needs to be a foundation that's established, because that anything that is unsturdy, again, has, the there's an opportunity for infiltration or for dilapidation, whatever that may be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you don't know. It's like, hard work pays off. Devotion has some type of return or reward. We know, like, spiritual law, or even the law of physics, of in the material world, of just being intentional about a thing. There has to be a return, or a reaction, an effect. But you could never, what I'm feeling is that you still get to leave room for something to, surprise you, for something to astound you, maybe even, that is reflective of, or will be reflective of, um, I would say, just how supreme you actually are, particularly in divine perspective. Mm-hmm. Supreme self-esteem. Nine of Cups. I often say that about this card, particularly. That's wild. That's wild. It's like conceited for a reason. Like, I am content with myself because I have a reason to be. Whatever those reasons are for you, whatever you've established, however you have evolved yourself emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, maybe materially, maybe physically, mentally. It all kind of does wrap up when you have the Pentacles and the Cups, the 9 and the 9 on the board, in both suits. So nothing is really left out here. But this actually comes before the Pentacles. So like I said, this was the investment in self that was made to ultimately justify the expectation for the, the best possible results to come in. Why would it be anything less, really and truly? We know illusionary conditioning in the past has kind of taught us not to expect much, maybe even of ourselves, but certainly not for ourselves, But this is a new era of identity for many, where you have every right to have great expectations for what your work and dedication has yielded to this point, and what greater things are to come in the future. Very promising future here, a very promising present and a future for someone, on account of a very passionate past, where someone didn't lose sight of their pure passion, even when you didn't have the support, you didn't have the notoriety, you didn't have the applause, when people actually didn't give a fuck about what you were doing. They wasn't checking for you. They darn sure didn't care to understand what you was doing. And you did it anyway. You stayed the course anyway. You continue to nurture yourself anyway, and to remind yourself that, you are great, you are amazing, and to find even the smallest evidence of that in the limited resource, the limited resources we had to do so is a great feat in itself, because most were supposed to have given up and, thrown in the towel on themselves way before a moment of recognition or reward would show itself. You had to find your own rewards to keep going, your own reasons to believe in yourself. And you did that. And some folks still might not get it, and they might never understand, and that's okay too. But it says to me, as long as you understand and you don't lose sight of the vision of yourself in that mirror, and of the even unforeseeable future, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. No one else matters. So, congratulations. You're amazing. And good luck and Godspeed, and continuing to spread that frequency, to expel that frequency into the world. Because one thing's for sure is people can't be told enough or encouraged enough to feel good about themselves, especially not during these times. I mean, really authentically feeling good about themselves at this time, So if you can be a beacon of life, of light, or an example, in that regard, in a healthy way, you're doing God's work. Believe it or not, you are. All right. So there's great reward and favor, I feel, that comes along with that. So enjoy yourself. If nothing else, if no one else, if nowhere else, enjoy yourself by yourself. All right. So we'll leave that there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.